The last bet the air smelled like blood and smoke. Thousands of aliens shouted from the stone seats above the arena, their voices mixed into a deep, hungry roar. This was not a place for mercy. It was a circle of pain, where the strong fought for glory and the weak were forgotten. In the center, lying on the cracked ground, was a human. His name was James Stone, and his blood painted the sand red. His face was dirty. His right arm was cut. His side was bleeding. He had no helmet, no shield, only a small knife still clutched in his shaking hand. He had already killed the beasts in the last fight, but the crowd wanted more. They always wanted more. Above him, in the royal box, sat the warlord Kardash, a tall alien with sharp silver skin and eyes like burning fire. He stood up and raised his hand. The crowd became quiet. This human, Kardash said, should have died 3 fights ago, but still, he breathes, still, he stands. So let's make it interesting. He turned to a cage on his left. Inside, a tall alien girl stood behind the bars. She was not like the others. Her skin was soft silver blue, her hair long and braided. Her eyes were bright, but tired. Her name was Liara, a slave from the royal scientist caste. She had been captured in a failed rebellion. Now, she was property. Kadesh smiled and pointed at her. If the human wins this next fight, he said loudly, I will give him the slave. The crowd gasped. Then cheered. But if he loses, Kardash continued, we feed them both to the worms. Bets were placed. Credits, weapons, even ships. No one believed the human would win. He was too hurt, too slow. His next opponent was the mountain beast of Velenar, a giant with 4 arms and thick black armor. Guards dragged James to his feet. He didn't resist. He could barely stand. His eyes rose to the cage. He saw Liara for the first time. She did not look afraid. She looked curious, like she had seen something unexpected. James nodded once, just once, as if to say, I see you. The gates opened. The beast entered the arena, rolling and shaking the ground. It was 3 times bigger than James. Its claws were long, its eyes red and hungry. The crowd screamed with joy. Liara held the bars of her cage tightly. The fight began. The first hit, the beast ran forward. James rolled aside just in time. His side screamed with pain, but he stayed up. He used the knife, once, twice, fast cuts at the leg. The beast roared, swinging the arms down. James blocked with his forearm and was thrown into the wall. His vision blurred. He tasted blood. From above, the warlord laughed. He'll die soon, Kardash said. Liara didn't speak, but her hands trembled on the bars. James got up again, slow, breathing hard. His left leg was shaking. His arm was numb. The beast came again. James waited, then jumped forward. He didn't strike the beast's body. He stabbed the floor. His knife hit the small metal plate hidden under the sand. A trap door. The floor broke under the beast's heavy steps. Its front legs fell through the opening. It roared, surprised. James climbed its back and drove the blade into the gap between its neck plates. A soft point. The beast froze. Then dropped. The crowd was silent. For the first time in many fights, the human had one with more than strength. He had used his mind. After the fight, James stood over the beast's body, breathing like fire. His legs gave out. He dropped to his knees. Guards rushed in. Some tried to lift him. Others looked up at Kardash, waiting for his order. The warlord was quiet. His face was hard. Then he laughed. Well done, he said coldly, a clever animal. He turned to Liara's cage. Open it. She belongs to the human now. But keep a knife near. She's still a slave. The bars slid open. Liara walked forward, slow and calm. She stood beside James, who was still on the ground. For a moment, neither said a word. Then she knelt beside him and whispered, you were supposed to die. James coughed and smiled weakly. Sorry to disappoint you. She tilted her head. Not disappointment, just surprise. The crowd chanted, but neither of them looked up. In a world of chains and bets, something new had begun. Asterisk, the human doesn't. False cells smelled of metal and old pain. James lay on a hard bench, half asleep, half awake. His side was stitched with thick alien thread. His shoulder burned from the bruises. His fingers twitched in his sleep, as if still holding the knife, as if still fighting. He had not spoken since the fight. He had barely moved, but he was alive. Outside the bars, the guards stood with pulse guns. They laughed in their alien tongue, one pointing at James. shaking his head. How did he survive? He's just a human, but not just any human, and not broken yet. Her arrival soft footsteps echoed in the hallway. Different, louder, not a guard. One of the guards turned. His laughter stopped. Liara walked slowly toward the cell. Her long silver braid hung down her back. In her hands was a small bowl, steam rising from it. The guards opened the door and let her in. They didn't speak. They just watched. She knelt beside James and placed the bowl down. Food, she said. James didn't move. Eat, she added. You need your strength. His eyes opened, slow and heavy. He looked at her, blinking. They send you to poison me, he whispered. She gave a soft smile. No, if they wanted you dead, they'd send someone louder. He sat up slowly, groaning. His ribs ached, but he took the bowl and ate, not because he trusted her, but because she brought something warm in a world that was cold. Questions and truths watched him as he ate. Why did you fight like that? She asked. Because I wanted to live, but you were bleeding. Your body was almost broken, but not my mind. He said, I fought worse things than monsters. She looked curious. Like what? He looked at her now, really looked. Loneliness, betrayal, the kind of silence that screams. She was quiet for a long time. So, you've been a slave to, she said. James didn't answer, but his silence said enough. Unexpected lesson later. That day, in the training yard, James was brought out again, not to fight, to train. They wanted to see how long he could last in motion, how many strikes he could throw before his body gave out. He was tired, but he obeyed. In the shadows, Liara watched. He fought alone. No teacher, no partner, just punches into the sand, kicks into the air, breaths that sounded like growls. After 20 minutes, he collapsed. The guards laughed. One of them threw water at him. Weak, he said. Human is just soft meat. James looked up at them and smiled. Then why am I still alive? They stopped laughing. Her decision that night. Liara returned to his cell. She brought no food, just a thin cloth. For your arm, she said. He let her wrap it, slowly, gently. When she finished, he asked, why are you helping me? She looked away. Because you didn't look at me like I was owned. You're not, he said. Her hands stopped moving. To them, I am. Not to me. A strange connection for the first time. Liara sat on the floor beside him. Before this, she said, I was a biologist. I studied plant memory. How some trees keep pain from lightning and pass it to their seeds. James raised an eyebrow. You're saying trees feel pain? No. I'm saying even things that don't speak still remember. He nodded slowly. Then maybe that's why I dream of fire every night. They sat in silence. Then she whispered. They bet me like I was just part of the prize. But they don't understand what you took from them. What did I take? Their control. A warning. Next morning, a new poster was placed all over the base walls. Written in bright red alien letters. Next fight. Human versus 2. Double glory. James read it. He turned to Liara. They want to kill me for real this time. She nodded. They won't stop until your blood buys back their pride. Then I'll just make them pay more. The spark of something more before she left. Liara turned at the door and asked, what will you do if you win again? He answered, without thinking, free you. She didn't move, then finally said, no one has ever said that to me before. Maybe that's the problem. James replied. The door closed behind her. He was supposed to be a tool for their games, but every day he lived, the slave girl began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the human had come to break the rules. The slave who spoke a sun on planet Droth burned cold. Its light was blue, but gave no warmth. Its sky was red, but gave no peace. Everything here was cruel, even the light. In a corner of the fortress, deep below the arena, Liara stood alone. She stared at a blank stone wall. She wasn't looking at the wall itself, but at the tiny carvings on it. Shapes, symbols, almost invisible, made by hands long gone. She had studied them for months in silence, not because she was curious, but because they told a secret, a way out. He was watching behind her. Footsteps echoed. James stood at the edge of the corridor, shirt torn, arms wrapped in cloth. You're always looking at that wall, he said. She didn't turn, because the wall is the only thing here that remembers something before chains. What does it say? Not in your language. Not yet. He stepped closer, still limping from the last fight. Teach me. Finally, she turned to him. Why? Because words are power, and I have nothing left to lose. She looked into his eyes for a long moment, then nodded. The first word they sat together by torchlight, in a quiet hall, away from guards, surrounded by dust and broken tools. She drew a symbol in the dirt, a small spiral with a cut through it. This means pain, she said, not the kind on the body, the kind that doesn't bleed. James stared at it. My chest has felt like that since I was 10. He said softly, mine too. She replied, neither. Smiled, but something passed between them. Not comfort, not friendship, something waiting to grow. A shift in the dark days passed. James trained again. They gave him harder fights, more injuries, less time to heal. But every night, Liara came. Sometimes with food, sometimes with silence. One night, she brought something else. A small book, hidden in her clothes. She placed it in James's hand. This was my first journal, she whispered. Before they took everything, he opened it. The pages were filled with drawings, maps, codes, but also poems. You were a fighter, he said. Just a different kind. She nodded, and I still am. A question, not a skid. James sat against the wall, book in hand. Why did they capture you? I refused to help them build machines that destroy. And they didn't kill you? No. They wanted to show others what happens when a mind is chained. He looked at her. But your mind's not chained. Not anymore, she said. He looked down at the poems again. Then asked, carefully, why are you giving this to me? She didn't answer, not with words. She just placed her hand over his for a moment, then took it back. A secret under the stone. That same night, Liara woke him quickly. Get up, she said. Quiet. They slipped into the hall. She led him down a passage he had never seen. A thin crack in the stone wall, barely wide enough to crawl through. Inside, a small chamber. In the center was a steel panel, covered in sand and time. What is this? He whispered. A maintenance hatch. It leads under the arena. It hasn't been used in years, but it still works. During the storms, it opens for air. James's eyes sharpened. You want to escape. She didn't answer, her fear as they sat near the hatch. She spoke quietly. When I first came here, I wanted to die. Then I stopped feeling anything. But now. She looked at him. Now I'm afraid. Of what? Of hoping again. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said, I know what that feels like. But maybe we don't need to hope alone anymore. The voice that returned the next day. A guard dragged Liara across the yard. A group of warriors laughed and mocked her. One reached to pull her hair. Before he could touch her, a hand grabbed his wrist. James. He stood, bleeding from fresh wounds, but standing tall. She's not yours, he growled. The warriors turned, ready to fight, but something in James's eyes stopped them. Not fire, not rage. Conviction. They stepped back. Later, in the cell, Liara sat in silence beside him. Then, without looking at him, she whispered, no one's defended me in years. Get used to it, he replied. After she was given to him as a prize. But now, the beautiful alien slave had found her voice again, and in the human's broken strength, she saw something she never expected. Someone was standing beside. Asterisk. The planet inside the paint sky above Droth was turning red again. That meant a storm was coming. Not rain, not wind. The storm on Droth was electric, loud and violent. It shook the walls of the arena. It made the lights blink, and for a few short minutes, it made the security systems weak. James sat on the cold floor of his cell, wrapping a cloth around his wrist. His last match had left his ribs cracked, and blood dried across his chest. His body was close to breaking, but his eyes still burned with purpose. Across the bars, Liara stood in the hallway. She had been waiting for the storm. Now, it was almost here. A moment of decision. They announced your next match, she said quietly. James didn't look up. How many this time? 2. Both from the Karnak species, fast, armored, trained to kill with no pause. James let out a breath. They really want to finish the show. Liara stepped closer. We don't wait for the fight. We go now. He looked up. Tonight. Yes, she whispered. Tonight. The hatch opens for 7 minutes during the peak of the storm. And the guards, half are ordered to power stations during the lightning strikes. They won't notice we're missing. Not right away. James stood up slowly. His legs shook. His shoulder was bruised black. I'm not at my best, he said. I know, Liara said. But you're enough. The dangerous helper. They needed one more thing. Access codes. Only one being had them, a small maintenance slave named Tak, a white-eyed alien with thin fingers and fast feet. He cleaned the control panels at night. He knew every hallway. James found him near the waste room. Tak, he said calmly, you helped me once. Remember? Tak nodded nervously. He never spoke, only clicked his tongue softly with scared. We need your help again, James said. We need to get out. Tak's eyes widened. James stepped closer. You're not free, Tak. They make you clean. They beat you when you move too slow. You want to die here, or help us live. Tak looked down. Then slowly held out a small tool, a metal key with a bright red chip. You'll have one chance, Liara said. Tok nodded. Then disappeared into the shadows. The map in her mind that night. The thunder began, not soft, not far, but loud and near, shaking the pipes. Liara moved first. She wore a guard's stolen coat and carried a device that turned off one security gate for 14 seconds. James followed closely behind, limping but alert. They slipped past the guards, hiding. In the smoke of the filled rooms, one guard turned. Liara held her breath, but the storm cracked again. The lights blinked. The guard looked away. They made it to the hidden hatch. It was covered by a pile of broken crates. Tak had removed them earlier and left a single red mark on the floor. Open it, James said. Liara entered the code. The hatch clicked, but didn't move. She tried again, then cursed softly. It's jammed. James dropped to his knees. His fingers, bloody and bruised, pulled at the edge of the panel. Lightning hit nearby. The hallway flashed. Guards would be coming. He gritted his teeth, and with one final pull, the panel popped open. A metal tunnel waited below. He looked at her. Go. The sound of betrayal. He dropped into the tunnel, sliding down cold metal into darkness. The tunnel smelled like dust and old oil. Their feet echoed as they moved. Then, a sound, shouting above. Not just guards. Someone had told. Tak, Liara whispered. James said nothing. They ran. The tunnel split into two. She turned left. He followed. But at the corner, a red light blinked. They activated the emergency lock. Liara said, we have 2 minutes before the tunnel seals. They ran faster. Escaped through fiery. The end of the tunnel was a round metal door. Behind it, the outer walls of the arena. Beyond that, the wildlands. Liara entered the final code. It didn't work. She tried again. The system blinked. Then opened, just a little. James shoved his shoulder against it. His body screamed in pain. He pushed. Again. It opened enough. They slipped through and fell into the cold night. Behind them, alarms screamed, but they didn't stop running. They didn't look back. Freedom bought by pain. They ran until their lungs gave out. Past rocks, past dust, into the trees beyond the city border. They fell under a thick root, hidden in shadow. James collapsed. Coughing blood. Liara dropped beside him, holding his arm. We made it, he said, voice broken. She nodded. You said you'd free me, she whispered. I did. She touched his chest. Not with love, but with truth. You already did. Asterisk. They escaped with nothing. No weapons, no food, no safety. But for the first time, the slave and the soldier were not owned by anyone, not even by fear. The storm and the screamed wild lands of Droth were not meant for the weak. Sharp trees twisted toward the sky like claws. The wind howled through broken stones. The ground was soft in some places, quicksand that could swallow a full-grown beast. Every shadow looked like danger, and sometimes it was. James and Liara moved slowly. They had been walking for hours. James could barely feel his legs. His side bled again. The cloth tied around his ribs was soaked. Liara kept him moving, not with force, but with her voice. Stay awake. One more step. Don't stop. And he listened, not because he was strong, but because she believed in him. The scream in the trees as night came. The sky flashed with silent lightning. Droth's storm was not over yet. Above them, clouds swirled like waves. They stopped near a fallen tree to rest. Liara checked James's wound. He didn't complain, but the pain showed in his eyes. You need medicine, she whispered. I need rest, he said with a faint smile. Then, a sound cut through the forest. A scream. Not human, not animal. Something between. Then another. Closer. Liara stood fast. They're hunting. What is it? Not soldiers, she said. Something worse. Rena beasts. They let them loose to clean up runners. James tried to rise. He couldn't. Go, he said. Leave me. Liara didn't answer Dot. Instead, she pulled out a sharp stone. If they find us, we fight. The creature from the dark beast arrived minutes later. Dot. It was tall, with black skin and glowing red eyes for legs, no mouth. Its body was made of muscle and sharp bone. Dot. It moved without sound. Liara pushed James behind her. The beast leapt. Dot. She struck first. Dot. The stone cut deep into its side, but the creature didn't stop. It grabbed her arm with a claw and threw her into the dirt. James pulled himself to his feet. His legs shook, his vision swam, but he moved. He picked up the broken branch beside him and charged. Not with skill, not with speed. Dot. Just heart. He slammed the branch into the beast's neck. Once, twice, the third time, it cracked. The beast fell. Dot. Dead. And James dropped beside it. Dot. A fire in the dark. They built a small fire under the rocks. Liara tied a leaf mixture around James's chest. Why did you stand up? She asked softly. Because no one hurts you while I'm breathing. She paused. Dot. Then said, you're bleeding inside. He laughed quietly. Good. Now my pain matches my past. She didn't smile. Instead, she touched his forehead gently. Rest. I'll watch. A memory returned as James slept. He dreamed of a camp. Not on this planet. Back on Earth. His old team. His captain's voice. Never leave someone behind. Not even when it's easier. He woke slowly. Liara was still beside him, but her head was resting on her knees. She hadn't slept. Dot. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The sky breaks open in the morning. They saw it. Smoke in the distance. Not fire. Not natural. Dot. A rebel outpost. Liara's eyes widened. It's real, she whispered. I heard rumors, but never believed. James smiled weakly. Maybe today's a good day to believe. They moved again. Dot. Step by step. Slow. Hurting. But alive. The final sprint while enemy scouts spotted them near the canyon ridge. Drones followed. A warning shot hit the rock beside Liara. They ran. Dot. James pushed forward, blood in his mouth. Liara pulled him over every root, every crack. The head. A tall tree with red leaves. A symbol burned into the trunk. Dot. Freedom. They passed through the opening just as the drones fired again, but missed. Hands grabbed them. Not enemies. Others. Dot. Rebel fighters. Liara collapsed. James fainted, but they were safe. Dot. For now. Asterisk. They had escaped. The arena. The guards. Even the beasts. But the hardest part was just beginning, proving they were worth saving. Asterisk. The place without change. When James opened his eyes, the ceiling above him was made of leaves. Sunlight moved softly through red branches. He was lying on a cloth bed, warm for the first time in many days. His chest was bandaged. His breath hurt, but it was steady. He turned his head. Liara sat nearby. Her eyes were closed, lips moving. Quietly, maybe a prayer, maybe just a whisper to herself. He watched her for a moment before speaking. We're alive. She opened her eyes slowly. Yes, and free. But her voice held a weight. Dot. Freedom was not simple. The camp of ghosts. Rebel camp was hidden under the red trees of the Teriel forest. Hundreds lived here, escaped slaves, broken soldiers, children who never knew peace. They built homes from stone and bark. They shared food and fire. But when James stepped outside, the stares began. Dot. Whispers. Dot. He's one of them, a human. They used to hunt us. Why is he here? Liara stood beside him, calm but ready. They're afraid. She said, your kind helped build the arena. I didn't. James said, I know, but scars don't care about facts. A voice of challenge. Later that day, a tall alien named Kren approached them. His skin was blue and cracked like dry stone. One arm was made of metal. Dot. He pointed at James. You don't belong here. Neither did you, James answered. Kren stepped closer. My family was killed by humans. My family was killed by war. James said quietly, we all lost something. Kren stared at him, then walked away. Dot. No fight. No answer. Just silence. But Liara noticed something. Dot. No one stopped them after that. He starts to help. James couldn't fight. Not yet, but he could teach. He showed young rebels how to move, how to hide, how to listen for the sound of a tracker drone. Before it attacked, he didn't speak much. He didn't try to win hearts. He just helped. And slowly, the whispers changed. He's not like the others. He's useful. Maybe he's one of us. The mind of the girl Yara worked in the tech hut. She rewired broken comms, translated enemy signals, mapped escape paths. She was quiet, always focused. But people came to her. How do I fix this wire? What does this code mean? What did the message say? She answered softly. Then, one day, a child hugged her after she fixed a broken radio. She didn't know what to do with the hug, but she didn't pull away. The camp meeting, a circle of leaders gathered one night. They lit a fire in the center and spoke about the future. The warlord Kardash was moving closer. His soldiers had taken to nearby valleys. We need to move. One said, no. Said another, we need to fight. Kren stood and looked at James. You were a soldier. What would you do? James didn't answer right away. Then he said, you fight when you can win. You run when you must. But sometimes, you stay to protect something more than yourself. They listened, not with trust yet, but with less fear, by the red tree after the meeting. James and Liara walked to the red tree that marked the edge of the camp. The wind was soft. The stars above them were silver. They're starting to trust you. Liara said, do you? She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, do you think we'll be safe here? He looked at the stars. Double quotes, no, but we'll be ready. The warlord prepares far away. In the throne room of Blackstone, Kardash stood in front of a screen. He watched footage from a damaged drone. The image showed James fighting, surviving, escaping. Kardash's hand closed into a fist. Prepare the hunters, he said, and tell them to bring the girl back alive. Asterisk. They bet wrong. Morning was quiet. Not peaceful, just still. Like the forest was holding its breath. Birds didn't sing. Leaves didn't move. Even the wind seemed to wait. Liara stood on a high ledge overlooking the camp. Her fingers held a small device that blinked red. They're coming, she said softly. James walked up beside her. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. How many? 5 warships. Dozens of ground troops. They're not just hunting us. They're bringing a message. He nodded once. Then let's send one back. Preparing for war, the rebel camp moved quickly. Weapons were loaded. Young fighters took positions in the trees. Old engineers sealed hidden doors. James stood in the middle of the camp and gave short, clear orders. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't begging. He was leading. We don't have tanks, he said, but we have the ground. We don't have armor, but we have a reason. Liara watched him. The man once left to die in a cage was now standing like a wall between death and the people behind him. The warlordized warlord Kardash stood tall in his command ship. His armor was black with sharp red edges. His soldiers marched behind him like shadows. He stepped onto the forest path with slow, heavy steps. Ahead of him stood James. No armor, no helmet, just a cloth across his shoulder and a piece of broken steel in his hand. Return the girl, Kardash said, and I will make your death fast. James smiled. Funny, you said the same thing in the arena. Kardash frowned. She was mine. She was never yours. Then I will burn this forest and take her from your bones. James stepped forward. Try. The battle begins. Sky broke open as the first shot fired. Lasers cut through trees. Explosions shook the earth. Dust and screams filled the air. James led a group of fighters through the left side, setting traps with sharpened metal. Liara stayed behind, hacking into the enemy's drones and turning their eyes blind. Kren, the once angry rebel, fought beside James now. He didn't speak. He just bled and swung and didn't stop. The war was ugly. The camp burned. People fell, but they did not run. The final face-off. James faced Kardash again in the center clearing. Both wounded, both tired. The warlord pulled out a plasma blade. James held a piece of jagged iron wrapped in cloth. This ends now, Kardash growled. Yes, James replied. The fight was fast. Fists, blades, fire. Both men hit the ground more than once. But James had one thing Kardash didn't. He had nothing to prove, only something to protect. When Kardash raised his blade for the final strike, James rolled low and drove the iron through the warlord's chest. The fire in Kardash's eyes flickered, then went out. Silence after storm. Battle ended. The ships were taken. The survivors freed. The camp stood, damaged, but still breathing. People came out of hiding. Children cried, but they were safe. Liara found James sitting near the edge of the forest. His arm was broken, his side wrapped again, but he smiled. When he saw her, we did it, he whispered. She sat beside him. You did more than survive, she said. You made them believe. The sword of the free. A few days later, they held a gathering. The oldest rebel leader brought out a sword. Not alien, not old but human. We found this, he said. Years ago, we kept it hidden. It belonged to a human commander who once gave his life to save slaves. He handed it to James. It belongs to you now. James looked at Liara, then took the sword with both hands. Then I'll use it to protect the ones who can't fight. A bond beyond words that night. Under the stars, James and Liara stood alone. What now? She asked. He looked at her. You're free, he said. You can go anywhere. She stepped closer. I am free, but I choose to stay. He didn't speak die instead. He took her hand, gentle, without force. To broken lives, to survivors, and now, to leaders. Astros they bet everything thinking the wounded human would lose, but in the end, it wasn't the fight they lost. It was their power to control those who had already chosen freedom.